Hello and welcome to today's video. So last year I did several monthly mashup videos, and what I did on that is I posted a bunch of choices and I let the viewers vote, and then I took the top two choices and mashed them up together into a sculpture. And I had a lot of fun with this, but it kind of got derailed in November, so I wasn't able to finish November's choice. So I had some requests to revisit that mashup theme, and I thought, well, the first thing I want to do is get that November mashup done. It's long overdue, so the winner of that, and you can tell by the title, is Pikachu and Godzilla. So in today's video, I'm going to mash up Pikachu with Godzilla and make my version of Pikazilla. So to start things off, I've got my Pikachu model here for reference and a Godzilla toy for reference. And having these 3D examples really helps when making a mashup. So I'm going to use these Reynolds wrapped sheets to build up a foil armature that I can put my Worbla over. So I'm just getting this built up. I want to have the head, the body, and then tail, and the kind of legs or hips. So now I'm just going to heat up my Worbla so it's a little bit easier to cut. I don't have to get it too hot. And then I'm going to cut it up into sections to wrap it around the foil base. So I'm just heating this up a little bit more than I did that first initial time. And I'm going to wrap it around. And I let it overlap just a little bit so it can stick to itself. And now I'm going to go ahead and heat up some more sections of Worbla to cover my foil base. And I'll continue to do this until I have that completely covered. So now I'm just adding a little bit of detail to it with my ball tool. And anytime I feel like the Worbla is getting too cool, like it's not taking the detail, I'll just heat it up some more. And I'm going to go through, and I just want to kind of shape the head a little bit better. It doesn't have to be perfect yet, but just give me a general idea of the shape of it. So I'm going to heat it up some more, kind of get that jawline, add some textures to it. Godzilla's skin is very bumpy and Pikachu's skin is very smooth. So right now this guy kind of looks like a chibi Godzilla. So, and even though my toy example didn't have these sections on the tail, lots of versions of Godzilla have kind of like a segmented tail or these indentions that go around it. And I like that look a lot, so I decided to go ahead and use my needle tool here and just kind of press it around, wrap it around to make those indentions. Now, like I said, he definitely looks a lot more like Godzilla than Pikachu at this point, so I need to add some Pikachu elements. So for his legs, I'm going to go ahead and add those little Pikachu feet. So I'm just going to take some scraps of Worbla, heat it up, and get it into that shape. And it kind of looks like a foot of maybe like a bunny or something. And then I'm just doing little indentions to do, for the toes. And I went ahead and did the other one. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the arms. I'm going to do it the same way. I'm just taking these scraps of Worbla, heating them up, shaping them into the shape that I want for the arms. And I'm definitely going with the Pikachu style of arms again, or, Pikachu style like I did with the feet for these arms. So I'm just matching that off my model, taking my needle tool to give little indentions for the fingers. And then I'm trying to figure out, where exactly I want to place it. I'll heat up the body and then heat up the arm a little bit. And then those two will bond. And I'll kind of take my ball tool in there to smooth them in, add some details, and make it look like it's, try to make it look like it's one piece. And I'll just keep going over this with my ball tool till I am happy with it. So I went ahead and did the other arm, and now I'm looking at it. So another thing I want to do to make it look more like Pikachu is do the ears. Pikachu has a very distinct look with those cone-shaped ears. They're very tall and pointed at the top, so I wanted my Pikazilla to have that same look. That would definitely help, with the mashup and make it look like, it has strong elements of Pikachu. So I went ahead and rolled out one long strip and then cut it in half, smoothed out those edges, and I'm just trying to line it up on where I want to put it on the head. So I'm pretty happy with how those are. So I'm using my model as a reference. Now I'm just going to go ahead and take a black marker and just mark it so I know where to indent them at, so I can line them up the best I can. So now I want to go ahead and heat up the top of the head, and then just take my ball tool to do those indentions, because I don't want them sitting on top. I want it to look like those ears are coming out. And while I was there, I went ahead and just added a little bit of indentions on the top of the head to give it that shape of Godzilla's kind of snout there. So that's the cross between Pikachu and Godzilla, and then I wanted to kind of mark where I was putting the eyes. I want to do that before I put those ears in there to make sure everything looked like it lined up okay. So now I'm just going to heat up the top some more and stick those ears on. And so you notice on this, I did not heat up the ears, just the top of the head. That way I didn't have to worry about distorting the ears at all, and I could put them in there and they would bond with that hot Worbla that's on the top of the head. Now I'm just adjusting this a little bit. I twisted the head just because I wanted them to have a little more motion to them. And now I'm going to go ahead and work on the eyes. And so I kind of looked at both my reference items, and I think it would look better if the eyes were more like Godzilla's, just because of the shape of his head. Where Pikachu's face is pretty flat. It's nose sticks out a little bit, but not as much as Godzilla's. So I thought it'd be better if I went with that look for the eyes and the mouth and the nose area, but I'm not doing his mouth as extended as Godzilla's, so it still has a little bit of elements of Pikachu. So I'm going to start off by heating up some Worbla scraps and roll them into balls for the eyes, and I'm just kind of putting them, not sticking them in the eye sockets, but just putting them up there just to see if that size was about right. So now I'm going to set those aside. I'm going to heat up and dig out my eye sockets a little bit more. I need them to be a little bit more bigger. And I can go ahead and place the eyes. Now, I don't want these eyes to be stuck out like this. He's, got a very bug-eyed look, and that's not the look I want for Godzilla. His eyes are more recessed. So I want to go ahead and take some scraps of Worbla, heat it up, and give him these kind of more of a forehead or eyebrow area that extends over his eyeballs, and that'll give me more of that Godzilla look to the face. So right now I'm just shaping these out. I want to make sure I have the look that I want, that it matches up with Godzilla the best it can, and I want these to be about as even as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and shape out each piece. Go ahead and shape out some more scraps of my Worbla, or heat up and get it into that shape that's going to work to go over the other eye. And now that I'm pretty happy with how that is, I want to go ahead and heat up just these little scraps of Worbla and make kind of a lower eyelid, so that bottom part of the eye doesn't look like it's sticking out as much, and it kind of blends in with the head a little bit better. So I'm just wrapping it around to get the shape, and then I'm marking it with the X-Acto knife and cutting off my excess. Then I'll heat it up and attach it right below that eye. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing with the other part as soon as I'm done adding these little details. So I've got my second strip of Worbla here for the lower eyelid, and I'm just going to go ahead and attach that. And I'm just taking my ball tool to smooth it in, make it look like it's one piece coming up over that eye. Now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and heat up the top part and put that over the top of the eyeball. And I do want to kind of bring it down in the center a little bit, make him a little more angry, and I feel that matches up with my Godzilla reference toy. So now that I've got those placed, I'm going to go ahead and heat up the top of his head and smooth them in a little bit better because I want it to blend. I don't want it to look like those are just sitting on there. So I'm just using my ball tool to smooth those in and add that texture so it kind of matches the rest of his body. And I'm just getting them shaped a little bit and keep smoothing it in. Just keep going over with it until I'm happy. Now I'm going to go ahead and start like kind of carving out or indenting the Worbla for his mouth. And what I wanted to do is I wanted his mouth to be more open, and I want to put in a bunch of teeth. So I've marked out his mouth. I'll go ahead and touch up some little details on his face. Now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and cut all these little pieces of Worbla that I'm going to use for the teeth. So I'm just going to heat them up, roll them out into little cone shapes, and then I'm going to use my needle tool to get them in place. It's pretty tricky, and I don't want to overheat them and have them droop, but I want to go ahead and get them so to make sure that they bond. And one thing I could do is if they move around a little bit, I can kind of heat them up and, adjust them with my needle tool as I get the other ones placed on there. So that's the real trick with working with Worbla, is if you have to heat up the sculpture and you have smaller pieces already attached, those could droop and kind of change their location a little bit, and you'll have to adjust them. So you see here a little close-up of me attaching one of his front teeth, and I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of the teeth. So I did skip ahead a little bit just because this video would be like 3 hours long if I showed every little touch of detail. So I'm just kind of skipping the parts that are the same, like adding all the teeth. And so here I'm adding the nose, and I just heated up a little bit of Worbla, shaped it into Godzilla's nose shaped, and then use my ball tool, a small ball tool, to do the nostrils. Now I'm going to go ahead and heat up the top again, take my needle tool and add little indentions to give it some ridges. I'll add a little bit different texture, and it'll give me more of the look that I want. The last thing I have to do here is just use my needle tool to adjust some of those teeth that moved on me when I was heating up the nose. So with the majority of the sculpture done, the last thing I want to do is do those dorsal plates on Godzilla. So instead of using the traditional shape for the plates, I decided that they needed to be the shape of Pikachu's tail. His tail is very distinct, and it has that kind of lightning bolt shape to it. So I thought that would look really cool to have the plates on the back of Pikazilla to be in the shape of Pikachu's tail. And I didn't want to use that shape for Pikazilla's tail because then I thought it would just look like a weird, evil-looking Pikachu and not necessarily, Pikazilla. And so it was kind of tricky to figure out what elements to use from which creature, but overall, I think I'm really happy with how this is turning out. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a few more dorsal plates based on that initial shape. And I went ahead and trimmed them down so they could go from small, to medium, to large, to small, to smaller on the back. And I went ahead and cut out 2 of each size so I could heat them up and stick them together. And that way they'd be a little bit thicker than just, one sheet of that Worbla thickness. I wanted to be a little bit more thick. So I'm going to go ahead and heat all these up and get them shaped and put together. So this is kind of a long process. I don't want to distort my overall look of them, but I'm just going to go through and get them all done. So I use my scissors to hold them in place, heated them up, and then blend them. Now that I have them all done and mostly trimmed down to the size I want, I'm going to heat up just the back of Pikazilla. Now these plates are cooled, so they're nice and sturdy, so I can just press them in without distorting them and they will stay in place. Now this last one here is a little bit big, it won't fit in the area I want, so I had to trim it down, which is fine, and then I will go ahead and heat it up some more, hopefully not distorting any of those ones I've already placed. And then just press them in. All right, so I went ahead and let him cool. His sculpt is all done. Now I want to give him a base coat of gesso so my acrylic paint will stick to him better. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover the entire piece with gesso. I just do one coat. That's what I've done on all my sculptures, and I haven't had an issue. So now I'm going to go ahead and let this guy dry overnight. So I want to start this guy off with some black patio paint. This is wrought iron black. And what I want to do is cover the entire sculpture with this black acrylic paint. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to dry brush over it, and that will make all those raised details really pop on him and give that shadowed look to them. So I'm going to go ahead and let this base coat dry overnight, and then I'm going to start dry brushing some white onto his teeth. Now normally I would mix some yellow in there, give him kind of an off-white for his teeth, but since I want to do my Pikazilla yellow, I want to do the teeth completely white, and that way they'll stand out against his yellow body. So now that those are done, I'm going to go ahead and start dry brushing his entire body with this neon yellow patio paint, which is another acrylic paint. So I'm just loading my brush, getting my excess off on my paper, and just going over the entire piece with this neon yellow, which to me is starting to look kind of green, and it's not really going over the sculpture very well. The clay, or not the clay, I work with clay a lot. The paint is almost a little bit translucent, you know, and so it's going over the black, it's just not covering it. It's not opaque enough, I guess. So at this point, I decided I'm going to go ahead and go back over it with this acrylic cream coat, pale yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and just do exactly what I did there and just dry brush the entire piece again with this pale yellow. And you can see here, this is definitely covering a lot better. And since this is covering a lot better, I went ahead and dry brushed the entire sculpture with this pale yellow, minus the eyes. I want to keep those black, like Pikachu's eyes. I thought that would be a good contrast with the yellow body. So now I'm going to go ahead and let this dry overnight. But once that was dry, I realized I definitely wanted to add more yellow to it. It's got too much black showing through. Even though I love the dry brush look, I definitely think it needs to be more... The yellow needs to be more dominant on it. So I went ahead and gave it a second dry brushing coat. And once I got that finished up, I'll go ahead and let that dry overnight. Now, looking here at our Pikazilla, I want to go back in and try that neon yellow again. I like this pale yellow, but I feel like it needs to be more vibrant to represent Pikachu. So I thought I would try dry brushing the neon yellow over the pale yellow, and I really, really like that. Normally I like my dry brushing colors to go from dark to light, but it almost, to me, gives like a glow effect. Like the edges of Pikachu are just, you know, really just glowing, popping. Pikachu's electric, so I thought that really gave the good look for that. So now I'm going to let that dry overnight, and I'm going to go in and start working on the rest of the details. So now looking on the back here, Godzilla's plates have kind of a non-uniform look to their color. It kind of like bursts out, where Pikachu's tail has brown markings on it that are very distinct. So I thought, well, I'll use the brown, but I'm going to splotch it on there so it comes up into that plate. And then he also had stripes on his back, and I thought, well, I'd bring those out from those plate markings. And his stripes are very like symmetrical or uniform. They're very smooth, and because of my sculpture I couldn't do that, so I thought I would just take my brush and bring those out into kind of a triangular shape and match the shape that's on those dorsal plates and have them a little bit rough. I mean, it was easier, and it kind of went with the look of the character better, I think. And I think it's a good mix between Pikachu and Godzilla. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that up. Now I want to add the black detail to the ears like Pikachu has. I think that it definitely needs to have that detail on there. This is a little bit tricky to line up, but I just took my time, used my Pikachu model as a reference, and then just gave it a nice solid black coat. Now Pikazilla is almost done. I just want to do a couple more things. I want to take my white acrylic paint and go back over the teeth, make them pop a little bit more, make sure they are covered a little bit better, just touch them up until I am happy with them. And then the last thing I want to do is add some white pupils to match Pikachu's white pupils. So all I'm doing here is I just got a little bit of white paint on my paintbrush and then just kind of dotted it in there. And I'm just going in and adjusting them so they're as close to the same size as possible. I'm doing a last minute touch up. And now I'm going to go ahead and let him dry overnight. And here is the finished Pikazilla. So go ahead and give you a good look at this guy. Really happy how he turned out. It was definitely a very fun piece. I absolutely love Godzilla, as most of you know, and I've enjoyed a lot of the Pokemon content. I love Detective Pikachu. I've played some of the games. My kids really enjoyed the cartoon. So it was fun to take these two characters and mash them up together into this Pikazilla. And I'm really happy how I was able to, capture a lot of key elements from both creatures and come up with this unique hybrid of both of them, or this mashup. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like down below. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel. I post a new video every week, and I do a couple of live streams a week. And if you have an idea for a future mashup, please leave it in the comments down below. All right, well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. And remember, never stop creating. Bye.